On today's special report, we will be discussing discrimination against Islamic Americans post 9/11 regarding the Patriot Act. Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, and Americans from South Asia play a vital role in our nation and are entitled to nothing less than the full rights of every American. Although this was stated in the Patriot Act, it is far from what actually happens in today's society. The American government, while trying to prevent discrimination against Muslims, has inadvertently created a hostile environment for Islamic Americans post 9/11. This can be shown through numerous documented incidents, and through changing the mindset of the public, this social issue can be seen. Salman Hamdani in the Patriot Act. He was a first responder who died in 9/11. According to CNN specialist Talat Hamdani, he was a cadet in the New York City Police Department, who also trained as an emergency technician. When Hamdani passed away, he was working as a lab analyst at Rockefeller University's Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Determined to get into medical school, he was working there towards becoming a doctor. His body was found in 34 pieces when it was finally discovered. His family was questioned for connections with terrorism. Missing or Hiding, the title of a 2001 New York Post headline regarding Salman Hamdani and his supposed connections with terrorism. Before anyone could locate him, there were posters around the city stating that he was wanted for questioning. The Patriot Act specifically names him as a hero. In Title 1, Section 102 of the Patriot Act, it states, "Many Arab Americans and Muslim Americans have acted heroically during the attacks on the United States, including Mohammed Salman Hamdani, a 23-year-old New Yorker of Pakistani descent, who is believed to have gone to the World Trade Center to offer rescue assistance and is now missing. He still isn't given the credit he deserves today." All of the names of the first responders who died in 9/11 are grouped on a separate part of the 9/11 memorial, except for Salman Hamdani. His name is grouped among the miscellaneous victims, not among the first responders where it belongs. When the government made Title I, Section 102 of the Patriot Act, they had a specific thought in mind: to help prevent discrimination of Muslim Americans. Although their intentions were sound, the end result was not what they had intended. Salman Hamdani, who can be described as a hero by many, is still not given the credit he deserves. And as long as the stigmatism of Muslims that is attached to 9/11 sticks around, he never will be. Airport screening for flying while Muslim. Racial profiling violates the Constitution. Similar to the case of Salman Hamdani, who was racially profiled for being an Islamic American, many Islamic Americans are still racially profiled years later. According to CNN, 2 million Islamic Americans are living in America post 9/11. The 14th Amendment is supposed to provide citizens equal protection from laws. And with the extensive profiling that the TSA has been doing, this right has been violated. According to civilrights.org, citizens from Muslim-majority countries were 1,280 more times likely to be targeted than similarly situated individuals from other countries. 32 million Americans report that they have been victims of racial profiling. According to civilrights.org, the case of Zabaria Reed, a U.S. citizen, Gulf War veteran, 20-year member of the National Guard, and firefighter, illustrates the problem. Trying to re-enter the U.S. from Canada, where he travels to visit family, Reed is frequently detained, searched, and interrogated about his friends, politics, and reasons for converting to Islam. Officials have handcuffed Reed in front of his children, pointed weapons at him, and denied him counsel. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed that people would be judged by the content of their character. However, the TSA is judging Muslims by the way they look. Security measures were updated post 9/11. TSA agents are now allowed to detain citizens under suspicion of them being a terrorist. They are allowed to make full-body scans and detain people without proper evidence. According to an anonymous TSA agent, the behavior detection program is no longer a behavior-based program, but it is a racial profiling program. Today, the TSA uses the behavior detection program under the guise of recognizing bad behaviors to help them determine who is a terrorist and who is not. They usually do not determine who they choose based on behaviors, but rather on the color of their skin. This was said by a TSA agent who wanted to remain anonymous in order to keep his job. He raised this concern with the New York Times. The 14th Amendment was made to provide everyone equal protection from laws. When the TSA singles out Islamic citizens for the reason being that they are Islamic, it defeats the purpose of the 14th Amendment. If these programs were created to help catch terrorists, then they are not doing the job that they were intended to do. When an Islamic citizen is 1,280 times more likely to be targeted than another individual, it just shows that the Patriot Act and the 14th Amendment that were made to help prevent discrimination of these specific individuals are not serving their intended purpose. Coming up next, we have a racial profiling video that just surfaced.
Pranksters on YouTube have highlighted the problem of racial profiling in the U.S. Let's now take a look.
Don't mess with me. You're the one who messed with me. We started the issue. Don't mess with me like that. Started the issue.
Well, this video first shows two young men in jeans and t-shirts arguing in English. A policeman is standing close by, but he apparently pays little interest to the row. But just 20 minutes later, a similar situation gets a quite different reaction from the officer.
What is this? I don't like it. I don't like it. You don't leave. No, it's nothing. Me.
What's all the arguing about? Why are you dressed like this? What is this?
I'm just talking.
Now, the very same people are walking down the street in traditional Muslim clothes. They again pretend to argue, but this time the officer is quick to step in. He frisks the men, asking if they are holding a gun or a knife, while the men try to explain they were just talking. The unverified video has already sparked a debate over racial profiling in the U.S. One of the men from the video later commented that for him and other American Muslims, such discrimination is an everyday reality.
My cell phone.
The video.
Breaking news. Muslim teens allegedly beaten by the New York Police Department in Bronx Park earlier this evening. According to the Huffington Post, two Muslim sisters, Lamis Chapman and Kalia Wilson, ages 12 and 14, were thrown to the ground and put in chokeholds by members of the NYPD. They also claimed that they had their hijabs violently torn off. According to the interview, the Chapman sisters claimed to have been in the park during the closing hours when the NYPD asked them to leave. The girls say that they were attacked when trying to leave the park. Shataik Wilson, the girl's brother, said he saw the police assaulting his sisters and ran to help them. He claimed that he tried to persuade the police to stop and asked what was happening. They then reportedly threw him on the ground. Another bystander, 18-year-old Jonathan Harris, became involved when he saw the girl screaming. He claimed that he took his phone out to call for help and the police pepper-sprayed him and punched him in the face. The NYPD denied all the accusations during their interview and stated that the girls were acting maliciously. The girls and their families stated that the police assaulted them because of their ethnicity. This story portrays discrimination against Muslim Americans in society today. The Patriot Act states that the Muslim Americans are entitled to the full rights of every man. This act was swayed and set aside in this investigation. According to the Huffington Post, the NYPD members were not charged after assaulting the two Chapman sisters. Instead, the girls were fined for trespassing. Jonathan Harris, who used his phone to contact for help, was charged with disorderly conduct and obstructing governmental function. The case was overlooked, and the Chapman family claims is because they come from a different ethnicity. According to the Huffington Post, this incident comes in the wake of a stream of bad publicity for the NYPD, as they face even more criticism for similar racially demeaning cases. Clearly, the instruction behind the Patriot Act was forgotten.
Breaking news. Asian American bullying in New York City schools skyrockets over the last few years.
Asian American bullying in New York City public schools has spiked in the last couple years. The report by the Sikh Coalition and the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund found that bullying of Asian American students nearly doubled to 50% in 2012, compared with 27% in 2009. Many students who had experienced this bullying were questioned and surveyed. It was found that many teachers and students were bullying these students based on their race nearly every day. The report found that many of the policies that are supposed to protect these students are rarely implemented. For example, only 16% of students who reported being bullied received incident reports, as required by the policies, and only 40% of the bullied students said that school officials notified their parents. When the government made Title I, Section 102 of the Patriot Act, they had a specific thought in mind: to help prevent discrimination of Muslim Americans. This article shows the opposite: discrimination against the Muslim Americans. The students being bullied are equal to each and every one of us. There should be no discrimination against any other culture, especially in school. The Patriot Act set this in stone, but the public schools in New York City still refuse to implement any policies to control this bullying. The schools and the majority of the people who have seen and noticed these atrocities are simply turning their heads.
According to CBS News by Jarrett Murphy, a New York reporter, Muslims are getting harassed wherever they go, school, work, and even in their communities. The main factor causing this is 9/11. Just because they are Muslim, people assume that we're involved with 9/11 attack. Because of the Muslims getting harassed so bad, the government formed the Patriot Act. Americans continue to complain and harass in the airport, such as using vulgar language. Supreme Court in January 2004, Supreme Court refused to look deeper into this consideration whether the government probably withheld names from other details about hundreds of foreigners detailed in the months of September 11 terrorist attack. Some Muslims say they were in life and went to hell. Because the Supreme Court makes it seem okay that people think all Muslims are terrorists, no trust can come from these Muslim societies. Everyone lives in fear from the 9/11 attack. They are being pushed around and getting bullied wherever they go. They get weird looks from people wherever they go also. They have their privacy getting taken away from the FBI and going through all their personal items. FBI wants to endure a lockdown. 762 foreigners held on immigration violations from September 11. Officers would give necessary physical pain to Muslims. The freedom of religion in our country is being violated. If people who are Catholic or Lutheran, a policeman can't come and search into their house just because of their religion. Therefore, if a person is Muslim, they should not do the same thing. This article shows why the Patriot Act isn't following through. It says that Muslims should be treated the same way, but they are getting the same rights as the rest of us. To protect the Muslims that weren't involved with 9/11, FBI, policemen, and the Superior Court should enforce the act more. Everyone has feelings no matter what religion or race they are. People are always on the run and don't even know how bad others have it. According to John Nolan, a staff writer, a security officer saw a Muslim woman to a humiliating search as she went through the Dayton International Airport. On Wednesday, July 2, 2009, the Council of the American Islamic Relations mailed a letter to the U.S. Transportation Security Administration and the Department of the Homeland Security Civil Rights Office to file a complaint. The woman wore a full-length dress and an Islamic scarf. She was stopped, pulled out of line, and proceeded pat-down. She went into a private room where 3 TSA employees proceeded a full-body search. She was forced to lift her dress to expose her entire body. She was also offered to lift her legs for examination with a security wand. She was released after 70 minutes to complete her trip to New York. After the examination, she wanted an apology from the woman at the TSA. The woman felt violated when she had to expose her entire body. She felt offended because she did this because she was a target point because of her religion. This action shows how Muslims are treated in airports due to 9/11. The security guards believed they were doing their professional standards. They took precaution because of what the woman was wearing, loose-fitting clothes where objects could be hidden. The security guard didn't need to take 70 minutes with the Islamic woman. Everyone should get treated with respect in how the Patriot Act comes into play to the protection of Islamics. Would it be the same as if Catholic nuns to get patted down? Do you think she would get the same treatment?
The American government created the Patriot Act with the intention of helping stop discrimination against Islamic Americans that started post 9/11. The intentions, although good, did not work out. Discrimination was not as bad for Islamic Americans before 9/11. George Bush went into the war with the intention of helping our nation, but ended up creating a cultural divide. A cultural divide that is unconquerable unless we do something about it. People need to be educated that terrorism has no religion, and that although some terrorists are Muslims, not all Muslims are terrorists. By creating an ad campaign that will educate the citizens of the United States, the citizens of America will become educated better on the lives of Muslim Americans. By creating a Middle Eastern religions class that is required in schools across the nation, students will be required to learn what is going on around the world, instead of only being aware of what is going on in their own country.